And if we're not willing to scratch and claw and show up and protest and show up and march and show up and testify and do those kind of things, the other side's going to run over us.
Let's talk about some very practical ways that we can help our kids to learn how to become freedom fighters. I was telling you before we came on live that my oldest, last week, she spent a week at the Capitol building here in Oklahoma, and she served alongside of one of our senators who is a Christian homeschool graduate, which is so cool. And she got to really see the inner workings of how our government works and how our state government works. And it was really a neat opportunity for her. And it was so interesting when she came home and she was talking about, just all the amazing things that she learned. And while she was there was a protest. There was a bill that was being considered and voted on, and it was for transitioning kids, for transgender, allowing kids to transition. And so they had a group of people who were there at the Capitol that the kids got to see them who were there. And, they were marching around and they were screaming, and they were, she said there was no violence, but they were rightfully there fighting for their side. And I see this happening over and over again, where the left and the woke are fighting. I mean, they're pouring millions and millions of dollars. They have people on the front lines who are fighting for this battle. And then you've got the Christians, many who are fighting and wanting to fight, but we're like, we don't know how, we don't know where to go, we don't know what to do. So give us some very practical ways that we as homeschool parents, you're talking to the typical homeschool mom who's got a, maybe elementary, middle school, and high school kid at home, maybe doesn't know very much at all about politics or about culture and what's going on. She knows that there's something wrong. How do we, as just your average homeschool parent, get involved and engage in this battle?
First of all, I want to say that what your daughter experienced, everyone should experience. Everybody, every citizen of the United States should see behind the curtain, peek behind the curtain, and see inside the belly of the beast and see how a constitutional republic actually works. If we're going to vote for people to go make laws for us, we should know how that process works. First of all, it'll make you, second of all, it'll make you better at talking to your legislator if you've done that. And that's part of what we're doing with the campus is we're creating this Patriot experience where you come in, bring the whole family for a week. You do a gun class if you want to do self-defense. You do a Constitution class in Independence Hall. But you actually serve as a legislator for a couple of days, and you get the chance to be the person trying to pass a bill and understand that process. I just think we've lost that. We don't understand civics. We don't teach civics. We've got to get better at that, and I think hands-on is the best way to do it. So we're going to be doing more and more to make that possible. But to your point about how the left is, and I say it this way, they've been in the trenches scratching and clawing for decades, right? They've been at this for 80 years trying to shift America into this, socialist utopia, if I could pick on, use your shirt a little bit.
Yeah.
And so they've been willing to fight while we've been, playing tiddlywinks or just, like we said, enjoying the blessings of liberty, but not in the fight, not paying attention. Part of the problem is there's a unfortunately popular sort of narrative in the Christian community that we shouldn't do those things, right? That we're just supposed to be nice. Romans 13, obey whatever the government says, all of that stuff. And there's really a mentality that to fight back is wrong somehow. That we're supposed to turn the other cheek in every situation, and that even includes, with all of these cultural things. And I've never understood that. I mean, if you're a follower of Christ, you can't pick and choose the things that Christ did and say this was Christ-like and this wasn't. Right. And so when people say, what would Jesus do? I'd say in some of these cases, Jesus would fashion the whip himself as he did and chase some folks off, right? And I'm not advocating violence, but I am advocating being willing to fight, willing to engage, willing to stand in protest, right? Being willing sometimes to do civil disobedience, to actually say no to the government. You're not going to close my church, or no, you're not going to take my child and force a vaccination on them, or whatever that line in the sand is for you. There's a time to say no. In fact, the founding fathers were famous for saying disobedience to tyrants is obedience to God. So we've lost that fighting spirit, I think, and we've kind of become snowflakes, honestly, as a nation, and very much as the church. The church has become very neutered, almost like we think that being good and holy means sitting around petting lambs all the time. That's somehow going to make us more Christ-like. And man, I don't know how you can think like that and read the Bible. I mean, you read the Bible and you get a totally different perspective on how to serve God and how to be in the fight. And so that's kind of, I think that has to be discussed. We have to have the right mindset, a combat mindset that we're in a culture war. I mean, let's be honest. We are at war in our culture, intellectually at war for the heart and soul of our children and for the heart and soul of the future of the country. And if we're not willing to scratch and claw and show up and protest and show up and march and show up and testify and do those kind of things, the other side's going to run over us. And for those that think that's not Christ-like, again, you need to read the Bible more, because I can give you a lot of examples of him speaking to the leadership in sometimes what we would call even almost sarcastic or undercutting ways, and using some name calling almost, that today we would say that's not Christ-like. You go, wait a minute, Christ himself did it. John the Baptist did it. Paul uses the law when he's being beaten, right? He calls out the law. So wait a minute, I'm a Roman citizen. You can't do this to me. And so using the system and using the constitutional Republican process is something that we must do. It's not even just a right, it's a responsibility. When we do this nicey thing, which there's nowhere is nice a Christian attribute, right? Kindness, yes, but sometimes kindness can be tough love, right?
Sure.
But niceness, no. But when we use this niceness thing as an excuse to not engage, I believe we are the wicked and slothful servant. I believe we're the servant in the parable of the talents that took the talent. In this case, it's freedom and it's liberty and it's citizenship, and we buried it out of either fear because we were, afraid, we didn't know what to do or whatever, or laziness. Some people say that the servant that buried the talent did so because he says later, I knew what kind of master you were. And so he not only did he know the master was a hard taskmaster, he knew the master would reward him with more work. So he was lazy and didn't want more work. Well, I think a lot of Christians don't engage because they don't want more freedom. They don't want to lead. So we cannot do that. We got to be the other two servants that said, okay, yes, I'm going to make the most of this opportunity that I've been given. Now, you asked me for specifics. There's a lot of things that folks can do. But number one, we must be educated. We have to know truth in order to defend truth, in order to spread truth. And so that's why what you're doing right here is so important. That's why homeschooling is so important, because they can get actual truth instead of the lies. In fact, that's how you repel the lie. If you don't know truth, you're not even going to know the lie. The deception is going to seep in, as Thessalonians says, and then you're going to act on the lie, and then you're going to have to live with the consequences of the lie. That all begins with they rejected the truth. And that's the petri dish where bad government grows. That's the petri dish where tyranny actually expands, is civic ignorance, biblical ignorance and civic ignorance. So number one, we got to study. We got to know, shameless self-promotion here. Take a Patriot Academy class, have some fun in one of our Constitution or biblical citizenship classes. They're not boring. You won't sleep in them. Become a coach and be the catalyst for educating people in your circle. And that will lead to the next step, which is citizen activism, because it'll give you community. You won't be on your own. You'll have other people in your class that are excited about showing up at, whatever it is, the legislature or the school board meeting. I know we're all homeschoolers, but 80% of the kids are still in the burning building. And so we need to be trying to influence those schools as well as best we can, and at least get the junk out as best we can. And we're citizens. We're paying for it. We're, electing those school board members. So a lot of that activity comes out of hosting a Constitution class because of the excitement when people learn things they didn't know before. They realize there's hope. There's a way to save this. The principles of liberty are still alive and well, but we've got to fight for them. So I do encourage everyone, take one of those classes, get people in your living room or your church, and then move into action from there.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.